Sorry, this is very fearful for me because even at school days I could not sit and talk to such a big group of people like this. It's because of who I am, which I've actually found out through working the steps of this program. I'm very much of an introvert person, and like I said, being fearful, being able to talk to a big group like this is quite a big step in my life. I think the only way I can do it is, let me start at the beginning. When did my whole drinking career start? I've actually got photographic evidence somewhere either between my stepmother's place in Cape Town or my brother's place in Westville of me at the age of 3, 4. I used to run off, grab my mama's bottle of beer, which you'd leave a little bit in the bottom, grab a cigarette, but off I go around the corner, sit and dope that and have a smoke. So yeah, my drinking career spans over probably more than half my life, which is probably 32, 33 years. My teen years, so I do apologize if I'm all over the place. After losing my mother to cancer, I watched her die very slowly, a slowly and painful death, but she fought very hard to stay alive and beat cancer. And back then, at 6, I was 14 years of age when she passed, finally. She had become a quadriplegic. She eventually started getting her life back online, started learning how to crawl, and she was proud that she was learning how to crawl. And then galloping cancer set in and took her out completely. We were all finally relieved that she had gone because she had suffered and she fought to stay alive for both to see my brother and myself grow up. But anyway, we moved to Johannesburg around about that time, and this is where my drinking problem really started. And every day after school, we would have a couple of beers at my mate's place, come home, have a couple of beers with the old man. In the evenings, my father was an alcoholic but never would admit it. Got to my point where my matric year, I'd actually was drinking my father under the table. I would actually have to carry him home sometimes or up the stairs to the flat where we were staying at one stage. I used to go down to the compulsory rugby games, blot it out of my brain, stay there for about half an hour and bugger off. And then good old college days, studying tertiary after the army. Somebody shared the one day, back in those days, varsity college years, I think we were all alcoholics. But more so for me, before we'd even go out to one of the nightclubs, we'd finish at least a bottle of whatever spirits and then go party all night long till the sun comes up. And so somehow I managed to pass, get through college. And then I was out into the big world. I got to a stage where I was running a branch, the manager of a branch, and one night living on my own, just poured myself a nice good old dope and said, what the hell am I doing? Poured it down the drain. I was clean and sober for a couple of months, and then eventually went back to it. Then I left that company. Didn't like the way they treated us managers, and went on to one of my dreams that I've always had was doing photography, and I landed up on the ships because my dream as a little kid I wanted to do is take pictures of beautiful babes in their bikinis on the beach, which I sort of got half right. And with being on the change now, working on international passenger liners, you have to have this image where you don't drink, you have to have a sober life, and being the person that I was, one of the chaps turned around to me and says, "Oh, shut up, have a couple of beers before you go do your photo shoot. You'll be a lot more relaxed. You'll be able to do a lot more negs." And that seemed to help. And of course, parties that used to go on until the wee hours of the morning, and go literally from one of the crew parties and the cabins straight to work, carry on drinking throughout the day. And the one season we had, there was a 5 of us, 5-man team, And the manager and his girlfriend, well, his girlfriend was a bit of a pain in the rear end. So these other two guys, myself, we decided, okay, there's three of us, 3 months a season, let's stay drunk for 24 hours a day for those 3 months. And we did. And at the end of the season, I then transferred ships and did my first European season. And eventually they made me manager of the ship. I had a 6-man team, including myself, a 6-man team. And I thought, well, better I start being responsible. So I cut back my drinking down to having a couple of drinks to shut off at the end of the day. And then go down to the cabin at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning after a long day's work. And this is how I'd switch off at the end of the day, to be able to get a couple of hours sleep before the next day started. And I got myself into such a routine that when I finally got off the ships to try and move back onto land and start living a normal life, I tried to give up, and my friend's wife turned around to me and said, because I just couldn't fall asleep. He said, right, that's it, mate, shut up. Here's a drink it. I need some sleep because you keep me awake all night long. Went back into that and, of course, progressed further and all the rest. After 10 years on the ships, I met my then-to-be wife, got off, continued that way of life, still continued drinking in the evenings just to shut off and relax at the end of the day, close off the day and move on. And so I did forget, while my first contract on the ships, my father had been diagnosed with cancer. On Christmas Eve, the doctor turned around and said, you've got one year to live because of the cancer, and they couldn't operate because it had been on the left bronchial of the lung. And if they had to operate, the heart would fall over, so there was nothing they could do for him. So the doctor said, well, Christmas Eve, sorry, here you go. Give you the bad news, let's get over and done with and move on with life. He did manage to go on 2-3 years. I eventually got off after my first, got off through part of my first contract to take care of him, take him through to his chemo and everything like that. When the time grew close, he said, that's it, I do not want to die in the hospital, I'd rather be at home. And I had to look after him with my stepmom. And having to deal with that and having to him being on morphine for the pain and things like that, and also there again, all the vital organs, cancer spread through, and in the last week of his life, it was very hard. I had to be strong for him, try to keep him lucid. He was hallucinating from the morphine, and I had to make out if nothing was wrong. But anyway, moving back to where I was, 2 years ago I had a heart attack, and it sort of set me back, and it did sort of knock me a bit back, and I started drinking, and of course now my drinking had changed from having that whole party life, having that good life, to a point where things were starting going downhill. Worried about my health, and worried about my wife was pregnant at the time. She couldn't help me. She was a month away from giving birth to our daughter, and she couldn't help me. I had to get from my bedroom to the car to down to the doctor. And a month later, daughter was born, and was I going to be a good enough father? My health wasn't the greatest. I had to change my life around. And then 3 months after she was born, we found out that my ex-wife had cancer, which really knocked me back. This is a person who I had put on a pedestal. She was I was infatuated with her. She was my world, my everything. And after losing my parents and seeing what they went through, I then, in my moments of my own time, I had to be strong in front of her. But once she had gone to bed, I would then start having drinking my problem was, what was I going to do without her if this cancer takes over? Am I going to be able to be strong enough like I had to be for my father? Could I go through all of that? And that started slowly destroying me. The doctors had put on her on a very strict regime of chemotherapy and radiation treatment because of the severity of the cancer. And this just floored me. I was strong enough in front of her, but behind the scenes I was crumbling. And this is where my life started becoming unmanageable through my drinking. And a year ago, this is where everything went wrong. She eventually left me and said, you've got a choice, either drink or us. And eventually said, that's it. And decided no. Through advice through her friends and things like that, they trumped up a whole lot of charges against me. I wasn't allowed to see them. I wasn't allowed to interact with my daughter. Everything went wrong. I even, before that, went to a doctor because I was in a total depressed state. I was put on antidepressants. I was about 2 months clean, but still on antidepressants. It didn't help. Back again after my daughter's first birthday, as I say, do not have that first drink, because it just put me back to where I was. And I eventually got to the point where I turned around I go on I stopped drinking on the 20th, the 19th, I sobered up on the 20th. 21st, I spoke to our then chairman, who was the minister of the Methodist Church, where we have our Wednesdays and Friday nights meeting. And I said to him, help, I need help. And put me in contact with Wendy. And Wendy said, right, we're having a meeting tonight, I'll see you there. At the first meeting, met this chap, big burly guy. Some of you will know him, or Rob Treadwell, and he became my first sponsor. And one of the things he said to me is, do yourself a favor, we're lucky enough to have a meeting every single night of the week here, every single day of the week. Do your 90 days, and then once those 90 days, do the next 90 days. And I was now committed to try and get myself sorted, and I had hit my rock bottom and didn't know which way to turn. So I took a suggestion. I started attending meetings. Yet everything which I tried to do myself, I tried to justify, I tried to fight this whole thing. But every time I would try to put my will in place, all hell would break loose. And after my first couple of meetings, and I thought about this, and it's like, geez, what am I getting myself into? Here's this God religious program, and I've done the whole religious thing where we are part of the evangelistic church, having that connection with God, which I never really did. I saw that, in my view, doing the God route was, if you don't do this, you're going to get slammed for this. God was not a fair person. You've got to do God's will, or else you're going to get into trouble. Things will go bad for you. But anyway, I eventually left the church after a minister who did not actually support us, because I was living in sin with my girlfriend at the time, and he kicked us out the church and said, you're bringing a bad vibe on the church. Well, sorry, if that's the way you think, then you're actually not in the right frame of mind. You as a minister, you are going to be, you're going to have to answer for chasing people away from God. So I left the whole God principles and things like that. I still kept in contact with my God. Whenever things went wrong, God helped me, get me out of the situation, but never found an answer or get any sort of solution from that. And coming into the rooms, I eventually, lucky enough, yesterday's reading was pretty much aimed on what happened to me, where Bill said, finding a God of his understanding. he turned around to his God of understanding and said, please help, take this craving away from me. I did that. Sitting, having to deal with all this on my own. I stood in my lounge in my house and I gave it over and I said, God, please take this away from me. Take this craving for drinking away from me. I don't want it anymore. I don't need it. And literally the next day, that craving for any sort of alcohol had gone. And that had opened up my door to the God of my understanding, and which is a forgiving God, a person who is standing there for you all the time, who is there waiting for you. And this is a relationship that I've become to have with the God of my understanding. Yes, it's Christian-based, but I've also learned from other religions and other things. We all have a common thing, even in our principles. It's do unto others as we would have done unto ourselves. If we're going to be ugly to people, expect it coming back to you. Rather do kind, rather help people, rather be there for them, not for yourself. But oddly, which I've actually learned, and my sponsor also tends to agree, our program is full of paradoxes, such as self-will. As soon as you take back self-will, things go wrong. But yet, there's only one self-will which I strongly believe that we all should have and all should live by. That's the only selfish thing that's actually helped keep me on the straight line of my recovery. Do not touch that drink. Do not even think about it. It's not necessary. From where I came from my journey, I was in a place where mentally I was broken. And it's a constant reminder to me, if I touch that next drink, I'm going straight back there. That is my only thing, which is that self-will, is do not touch that next drink. Do not even think about it. That's the only thing, and that's the only selfish thing that you've got to do. I'm in this chair for me. I need to get right. I need to stay on this line. I need to stay sober. I need to keep going. If I even have that little thought of having another drink, I'm not going to be able to be here to stand up and help somebody who's coming to me and saying, listen, I need help. It's just going to land up me getting me in a mess. And I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to go back to where I was. That's the hardest thing, which has actually kept me going. I don't want to go back to where I was. I've learned, and what one of the chaps in the evangelistic church taught me. Your God of your understanding is your best friend. He's waiting for you. He's waiting for you to give you advice. And this is what I've learned through this program, is that, hell, there's no problem big enough. Hand it over. Even if you sit and say to somebody, your sponsor, to a friend in the group, you can't get hold of your sponsor, get hold of somebody. This is a problem I'm having. Just sharing it. That alone. A couple of days down the line, you might get an answer from somebody totally random. And there's your answer. I've learned to listen in this program. Handing over in prayer. At the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, I get answers from people. I never got that in the church. This is why I found a lot of my answers through going to meetings. I still, to this day, go to as many meetings as possible because there's an answer there. I'm learning about myself through other people's shares. And that's one of the best things. But anyway, one of the things that my first sponsor turned around to me and says, wait until you're ready. Don't jump into working your steps. Give it time. And I didn't understand why he said that, and eventually I found out that was given the opportunity. His wife had moved over to England and he wanted to spend time with his kids. And I was proud of him. He cleaned up his act from where he was. We had a very similar past and things like that. So he eventually moved over to England. And I had my green and gold, and he said, just hold on, wait, give it a few months, find out where you are, how you're doing. If you're going to relapse, you're going to be wasting your time. I said to him, you sure about that? He says, yeah, don't worry about that. And eventually I found my current sponsor, and I said, right, it's time to start doing my green and gold in step one. And I asked him, how do I answer these? He says, as best as possibly as you can. Be honest with yourself, and that's going to help you. So I thought, well, to hell with it. And started going through the green and gold and started with my step one. And some of the questions inside there, it's like, Jesus, how the hell am I supposed to answer these questions? What am I supposed to say? What are they looking for? Let's go back to the big book. Let's read the whole big book. Let's see if I can find an answer. Go back, look at the questions. Jeez, don't know how to answer this. Let's give it a moment. Go off, have a smoke. Sit, think about it. And went back on his words. Go back as far back as you can. Try and figure out where, what, and how. And this is what I did. And I'd opened up doors which I had closed on my past. Understanding why I drank. One of the reasons why, because I was an introvert. And this became apparent back to me. I wanted to go off and be that fun-loving person who can, sit in a crowd and feel normal. Hell, that was me. And that's why I based on my drinking career. And, geez, is that what it was about? And also carrying on through chatting with him and being, whenever I had a problem, turn around, I need help. You drop everything, it's right, coffee, my place now. Shit, get through. That's one of the things which sponsors should do, and I'm actually proud my sponsor's given me the freedom and said, right, you do it, it's up to you. It's not up to me. I can take you and say, beat you to death with this book, but it's not going to get in. It's up to you. Nobody can help you in your recovery. It's up to you. You need to do it. And I can be there. I can offer advice. I can help you. But it's up to you. And I remember the one day just before Christmas, and between my ex and I, we were still fighting, and all hell broke loose because I had taken back my self-will, and I know better, I know what's right. And we had a huge argument, and of course now I was in a mess, and I phoned him up. I said, now, meeting. He says, I'm very busy, but you know what? They can wait. Let's go, coffee. And while chatting to him, he came up and gave me an answer. He says, all I can give you is my advice. So what you do with it is your problem. You cannot do what, or prevent, or incur, or deal with whatever they've got to say to you. You've got to accept what they've got to say to you. You have to answer for your actions. You can't answer for their actions. It's their problem, not your problem. You've got to look at your problem. Why are you here today? And I went off, thought about it, and even his wife turned around and gave me somebody who's not in the program, but yet, yes, she nailed me. Told me to wake up, smell the coffee, realize my actions, what I'm doing, is wrong. And continuing through the steps, I know I can't give direct amends to my ex-wife and actually sitting down, these are the problems, because I know I'm going to open up a can of worms that is going to be where step 9's come into play. I'm going to land up hurting her and saying wrongful things to her and trying to give her inventory to her where it's not my place to. So I'm doing as many indirect amends as I can, where I can and how I can. I've got this little 2 years, 3 months old daughter who loves me to bits, loves spending time with me, and I try to take as much time as I can with her, because seeing her grow up and interacting with her, I don't think I'll be able to have the fun with her if I was still drinking that I'm having with her now. Sadly, I'd rather not be here today sharing with everybody. She's unfortunately back in hospital with bronchitis. I'd rather be there. And my ex-wife sent a message from her this morning saying how much she loves me, and it was just the thing that I needed this morning, to come through here and to share with everybody. But yeah, this program is, nobody can do anything for you. It's up to you. I hope that some people could have the journey that I've had, especially on the sides of understanding and realizing when enough's enough, and not to go back to that bottle, not to go back and use, because what are you doing to yourself? What are you doing to others around you? I'm seeing things a lot clearer through being sober and clean today. I'm able to answer and find solutions to problems being clean and sober. If I was still using today, geez, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be where I am. I'll probably be homeless, in a mess, and probably scratching through dustbins right now. I'm thankful for this program. I'm thankful to all the people that who's been there for me. To the people in the meetings, even though I don't share most of the time, but I've taken something away from each meeting. I've learned something about myself. I've learned how to deal with situations. And I wish and I pray for everybody else and to the newcomers that when you've left the house on the hill, or if you're going through the rooms like I've done it myself, that you are able to find the journey that I have and stay clean and sober. And this is, I still classify myself as a baby in the program. I've still got a long way to go, and I hope that the God of my understanding will keep me on this path. Thank you.
Thanks, Jose.